Gracias. Me gustaría escucharlas con algunas reflexiones. ¿Están traduciendo? Fiona. No.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a proposal that we hear the next speaker from Malawi before we break up for tea. I don't know if that is possible.
There are two
Yes.
there are two speakers from Malawi.
Two more?
Yes.
Una discusión. Discussion, please.
Sorry, one moment of discussion. In the contrary, we now have the possibility to assume all this very rich paper. So, 10-minute discussion, please.
One moment.
Discussion?
Discussion, please.
Discussion. I'd like to say that I've listened very attentively to all the speakers from lunch. And I'd like to say that it occurred to me that it appears as if we're all claiming our countries are appearing to be saints, and it's the neighboring country that is our problem. I think, first of all, we need to appreciate and accept and adopt the problem as our problem. If we don't claim the problem, then we cannot get the solution. Kenya passed the problem to Tanzania, and yes, and Malawi, one of the speakers now said Kenya was also part of their own problem. Nigeria is a problem to everybody, just as everybody is a problem to Nigeria. If we don't, what I'm trying to say is, if we don't adopt and accept that we have a problem internally and amongst our neighbors, then we will never get a good solution. Everybody is trafficking across everywhere. In fact, we are trafficking into Europe. Europe is trafficking into us. Nepal is not in Africa, but it is trafficking into Africa. So I think, first and foremost, let us admit that we have a problem. If we admit that we have a common problem in Africa, and the problem is the same, is human trafficking, is prostitution, is organ trafficking, is baby factory, whether you're adopting the baby from Nigeria or you're adopting the baby from Morocco, we are still adopting children across borders illegally. That is the problems we have. So we need to, first of all, agree that we have these problems, and these problems are common to all of us. Then we can now start learning from the experiences of other countries, and then also borrow from the international community to see. But the international community is not going to solve our problem. Our countries are different, our peculiarities are different. We cannot sit down and expect the UNODC to give us the solution. I know it is working in a lot of our countries, but what are our own cultural practices that we need to maybe fight against? What are our own porous borders that we need to look into? What is the essence of corruption? How does it play into our problems? We've all mentioned them as problems in our countries as well. So what is the solution? I know a lot of us are still going to have to talk, especially about this organ trafficking, this harvesting and trafficking in human organs. That's another issue that I will still think maybe tomorrow we're also going to continue to talk about it. I just want to draw attention to the fact that we need to, first of all, admit and adopt this problem as our problem in Africa.
Can I say something? Can I say something? Yeah. Thank you very much, Binta. I think we have admitted that Kenya is a source, it's a destination, and it is a transit point insofar as human trafficking is concerned. And that means that we do have a problem within ourselves and also outside. So if that was not very clear, I think we want to make that clear, that we are not just a source, we are also a destination, and we are also a transit point. Maybe the examples we gave were more on the transit aspect, or maybe the destination aspect, but we are also a source. And that is important for us to know. And that is why I'm emphasizing on this aspect of adopting a regional approach. Because we do have laws in our own countries that is supposed to deal with the problem. We do have laws in our neighboring country. Uganda has a law, Tanzania has a law dealing with human trafficking. But the way we are implementing those laws, or we are interpreting those laws, may not necessarily be the same. And that is why it is important that we have a uniform approach. So I think that is what one of the solutions that we really need to work on, so that we have a uniform approach of dealing with this problem. And as women judges, we can sit together the way we are sitting here, identify the issues, and also provide the solutions. Thank you very much.
My question is to the magistrate from Kenya, Christine. You mentioned you have a victim protection agency. Can you elaborate a little bit about what it does?
So we have, it's called the Witness Protection Agency. Okay. So the agency is formed under the Witness Protection Act. Sorry, I can't remember the act, the year of the act. So under the agency, they have a board that sits and evaluates people who they prefer or people who they think are in need of that protection. So within Kenya, we do have safe houses for the victims of certain case scenarios. So what would happen, once you're evaluated, then you're taken to the safe houses, and then the agency provides for you in terms of your meals, in terms of your accommodation, and they securely also ensure that if you're meant to be in court, you're transported to and from court, and your identity is also kept secret from maybe your would-be perpetrators or people who are hunting you down. So the agency is quite new. I think it's about maybe 2 to 3 years, so they're still trying to find their way, but they've helped us in a few cases in that if there's an issue that they're bringing someone to court, they can robe you differently, so that now once you enter the court, no one actually knows who you are, and you can testify in camera. You don't have to necessarily be revealed to your perpetrators or to the accused persons. So you testify in camera, then they take you out through maybe another exit channel, and you go back to the institution where you're staying, the safe houses. So the safe houses are not known to us, it's just within the agency, so there's no interference whatsoever of the ones we have protected so far. I've not heard of any instance where we've lost a victim or we've lost someone who we've kept within the protection agency. So at least I know the agency is working. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, and on that issue, I have dealt one case where the victims were under witness protection, but then they couldn't hold them for too long. They told me I needed to complete the matter in less than a month, because they kept on moving them from town to town to hide where they need to live and all that. And they had to get for them accommodation, protecting them, ensuring, monitoring, and because they were saying they are under threat all the time. Yes, so they don't have the resources. That is the issue. So then you need to organize your diary and make sure that you hear those matters within the shortest time possible, so that then they can really, I don't know why they take them after that. All right.
Thank you so much. For me, I wanted to add to Kenya's response to Honorable Binta Fatima Nyako's sentiments to say, if in all that the distinguished participants that went before me, we have not been able to understand that we are all acknowledging a problem, then I am discouraged. I am discouraged to say, what have we been hearing? Because it is very clear. That's why for me I summarize to say the problems that have been highlighted here, I'll just summarize to highlight another problem. And the problem I cited is how we are unable to meet to see who is beyond these people. It's UNODC, for instance, is organized crime. If in my speech I'm saying we are failing to go beyond this, it's a big problem. It means the people who are benefiting from this, we are not getting them. That's a big problem. And that's why we are here, to highlight those, because at the end of the day, to say, as we shall at the end say, what should be the best practices? What is it that we need to get? So we're coming, highlighting our problems to say, we will hope that we'll go beyond this. This is a problem, this is a problem, to say, with these problems we have highlighted, what is it that we can do so that maybe we do better? So in my view, we have actually been communicating problems. We have been saying we have problems. So mentioning a bit of achievements is not aimed at being ostriches to bury our head, but to encourage ourselves, to say we're doing something, but there's more that needs to be done. So I would say we have been owning this problem. That's why some of us are here, setting aside everything else, because this is important. This concerns all of us. That's why we are here. Needed to put that on record. Thank you.
I wish to respond to the question of protection. In Tanzania, we also have the same policy, and we usually have few NGOs which provide homes for the victims. They would look for schools for them and do some counseling and try to reunite them with their families. Those who wish to go back to their families are sent back to their families, but some of them are reluctant to go back home for fear that they may be put back into that chain. So they would stay there, finish school, and maybe go to college until they're adults. But as the speaker from Botswana said, after 18, what happens? So I think, apart from, first of all, there are very few such institutions, so there's a lot to be done to put in place more institutions, but also to think of what should be done after they are of age. Maybe go to these training institutions, what would you call them, these voluntary training institutions, small courses, so that they can be able to take care of themselves when they go back to the society. But it's still a challenge. There are institutions like that, but there are very few. And they also have one-stop centers where you get medical care, social welfare assistance, and all this. But again, as I was saying, there are still very few, and we still have to work on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that we need to look at the problem again from the perspective of what is at stake here. This is a billions of billion-dollar business that's going on around the world, and it's preying on the poorest of people among the poorest of poor countries. These countries, to a great extent, cannot even help themselves to fight their own problem from within. There needs to be a structure that needs to be set up whereby it can be funded from different levels in a multi-sectoral approach, so that way you're not only dealing with the victims, you're dealing with where the money is going. Who are the perpetrators? Where are they coming from? We find that we're stuck in our own little cocoons in our countries. We can't go beyond our own boundaries to try and help ourselves simply because we're so poor. Well, not that I say we're so poor as countries, but financially, resources-wise, we don't have it from within. So the important part is that we're talking about it. We're here today. We can find ways of using this forum to try and create forums to help ourselves. So at least it's a start. I think this is a fantastic opportunity we've been given. And if we're able to go beyond this from today and chart a way forward, where we can find resources to help us as countries, where the poorest of the poor are being exploited, I think that will be a great start.
Yes.
Thank you. Just to add a voice on what my sisters have said. Now, here, sitting here and listening to the presentations, what I notice is the legislation appears to be quite recent and quite new. And getting back home, copying from other jurisdictions on improving on our own might prove an uphill task. But if we come up with guidelines from this forum, borrowed from all the legislations that we have on board, enriched by the international instruments as guidelines, and then these can now be used in the form of task forces back at home to come up with the material to train our own people. And then personally, I would advocate for, because of the nature and the vulnerability of the persons involved, we agitate for specialized courts that will assist in fast tracking of these the cases. Thank you.
I want to say something, that in our experience, after many meetings, also the judges and women judges, we can say that there are 4 questions. The first question is, what is the real position of the government? The different governments of the different your countries are really in a position to apply the laws against to the traffic, or are negligent, or are collaborative with the traffickers? Because in Latin America, there are governments that are really in collaboration with the traffickers. So the conclusion of the meeting of the other judges, women judges, was, the first point was this: the responsibility, the first responsibility to eradicate traffic is the responsibility of the governments. So this is one question. The other question is, what are the solutions that need also to help the government? For example, for the prostitution, the best solution that we know is the Nordic model, that for the first time in the history penalize the consumers and not the victims, that are not criminals like the other laws. In the case also of, this is one thing, the other thing is to have some institutions to help for the reinsertion, for rehabilitation of the victims. In the contrary, we don't have a solution for the victims. So it's very important to have some protocols to solve the problem of the victims in the case of prostitution. And for the case of trafficking of organs, according to the people that work with us, our academician Van der Monico, that belong to the association of the transplant doctors of transplants, that there are many in the world, I think also Africa belong. The 10% of the transplant is made by trafficking of organs. So if we don't speak with the government to really be vigilant about this, it's impossible to change things. So it's very important the real position of the governments in all these things. So could be interesting to know what is your opinion about the position of the governments about the traffic. Thank you.
Helen, Vinta, your opinion? Your opinion for trafficking, organ trafficking?
Sincerely, I have not studied the issue of organ trafficking as a law in Nigeria. I have not come across it, and the
government want to have some collaboration, or they are very happy to have prostitution because it's a form to have money? This is concretely the question.
No, there are laws against it. But like we've all said here, the law is one thing. Arresting and prosecuting offenders, it's something else. And the issue of corruption also plays a big part in the issue of prosecution and arrest and prosecution. No matter how good a case you have, if the investigation is not thoroughly done from the very beginning, you can never secure a conviction. You can never have a good prosecution. And the court is not going to come out and do the case for you. The governments in Nigeria have frowned against prostitution. It is an offense against the law. The governments have gone out on night raids, on day raids. They've shut down brothels. They've arrested people, but I haven't seen any serious, secure conviction that will go down and act as a deterrent to anybody. Most of the prosecutions have done by lay prosecutors, police prosecutors. We have different grades of magistrate courts in Nigeria. They would go to the lowest grade of magistrate court or area court and prosecute such cases there, where sometimes even the presiding judges or magistrates are not really that trained in the law. So the issue, it's an organized crime, and then of course, when you grant bail, there is somebody there to take them on bail, which means there are some people with money behind the business. I have had a case where I had some young girls who were being kept in brothels, and the monies they make are being taken by the hotel owner. And they are actually proud of their profession. They didn't see anything wrong in it. They just thought they were sending money back home to their parents and helping to put food on the table. The governments are fighting day and night to stop this. But like we all know, at the end of the day, it is the victim that is being re-victimized. Because if it is the prostitute that is arrested, that is taken to court. The client is never prosecuted. The brothel owner is hardly ever found to be responsible. He just says, no, I didn't know anything about it. They just came to have a drink in my hotel and ended up in the rooms. I didn't know anything about it. So the prosecution, like I said, detecting the crime in the first place is even a problem, because you have to have willing victims, sometimes which are very difficult to come by, and then the prosecution, of course, also needs to be thorough. That's all I can say about that for now.
Can I add some? Sorry.
Muito boa tarde, sou Vitalina Papadakis, sou de Moçambique. Eu achei interessante a pergunta que foi feita relativamente ao comprometimento dos governos. A propósito deste evento, eu fui visitar o programa de governo, que vai terminar em 2019, é um programa que iniciou em 2015, são 5 anos de governação. Também apreciei o programa do governo anterior, 2010-2014, e percebi que há muito pouco comprometimento em termos de programa de governo relativamente ao combate ao tráfico. E noto também algum retrocesso
do último plano quinquenal do governo para este último, tanto este que está em vigor, no último havia no âmbito da segurança, tranquilidade pública, havia o comprometimento de continuar a envidar esforços para o combate ao tráfico de pessoas e de órgãos. No plano quinquenal do governo de 2015-2019, este comprometimento já não está lá, há apenas uma pequena referência relativamente ao tráfico de crianças. Isso significa que não faz qualquer referência ao tráfico de mulheres. Partindo desta apreciação, nós concluímos que há um papel que é principal, que é o papel do governo, não só no que diz respeito ao comprometimento nos seus programas, mas também a ação. Podemos ter as leis, mas o programa que o governo tem, que programa o governo tem para a implementação dessas mesmas leis que estão em vigor, que são aprovadas pelos parlamentos. Então, eu penso que também é esta abordagem que nós temos que fazer efetivamente, não só ao nível deste evento, mas ao nível dos nossos países. Questionar o próprio governo, o que é que está a fazer, e olhar para esses programas tanto de cada período de governação para ver qual é o compromisso assumido por cada governo. No caso de Moçambique, embora se faça alguma coisa, mas se nós olharmos para o programa, vemos que o compromisso é bem menor. Obrigada.
Vitalina. Sí, from Kenya. Agnes, please.
Thank you again for the opportunity. The issue about governments is critical, it's fundamental, I agree. And for example, in Kenya, in 2015, the government set up a counter-trafficking advisory committee, and then thereafter set up a fund through which it would receive funding to assist in trafficking. I think it received at some point some 7 million shillings, which I think you could translate that to what, $7,000? That is no money at all to deal with this kind of an endeavor. In the end, the country has other problems to deal with. The priorities then shift. And then the trafficking issue is put on the back burner until another impetus comes around and tries to jumpstart that process again. So what tends to be happening is that it's happening today, tomorrow it fizzles out, then it starts again. There's no continuity, there's no structure to it, there's no supporting it. And the basis of it all really is around resourcing and being able to ensure that all aspects of the chain, whether it be the investigations, prosecution, whether it be to support the victims before and after, it's very heavy resourcing that's needed in this area. We'll do our part as judges. Those matters come before us. We will deal with them and do what we have to do to support the process. But the rest of the process, there needs to be the completion of the chain, so that from start to finish, the whole process is sewn up. And that's where we are having the challenge here. So that, I say again, it's multi-sectoral. It has to come from all aspects of the society that is involved in the process. So that, like my sister said, we're almost at the end of the story. But like I say, we'll do our part. Once it comes to us, we'll deal with it. But let it come to us in a way that at least we can ensure that there is success in the process. Thank you.
Sí, please.
I want to say something about this question of the money. Of course, the government said that not have money enough to work in this line and to apply the laws. But in reality, the idea that was proposed here by the judges, women judges, was that it's important to have money to take the goods, incautation, to take the goods of the traffickers. Because the traffickers, the unique thing to want to have is money, goods. So if we take these goods, this money, we have money. The government have money to give this money, to use this money to the good of the victims in different way, or to control the situation, to pay the police to do this, and all the things that are consequence to apply the law. So it's very important that you be awareness about these possibilities. The same for the traffic, the same for the traffic of organs, the same for the other thing. So also the police, it's very important to know if the police is really honest or have collaboration, because according to our experience, the victims not believe in the police because know that the police are in collaboration with the traffickers. So this is the concrete things that we need to know. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. My issue is the issue of witnesses. The question is, can we prosecute a women trafficking case without a witness? The answer to me is a big yes. Because just because that a witness is unable to talk due to the fact that they have been re-trafficked, because we have had situation in Botswana where we lost some of the victims due to re-trafficking because somehow we did not play our cards right and the victim ended up being trafficked. So the question is, those who are arrested, are we going to leave them because the victims are not there? The answer is no. And the answer is no. And how are you going to do it? This is where prosecution-guided investigations comes in, because we know that no matter what, our police are not capable of investigating thoroughly cases of human trafficking because of their complicity. So it is best to introduce the prosecution-guided investigation, because this is what we are on the line of doing. We have set the guidelines, but now we are left with implementation, because it will assist, because the police will not know what should they do when a victim has suffered Stockholm Syndrome. Because when a victim has suffered Stockholm Syndrome, this is where the psychologists come in. Because then you will not need that victim to go and testify. Then you will need the psychologist to go and testify and give what is that and what the damage the victim has suffered. And remember, you have other evidence that supports that this is a victim of trafficking and this victim has been exploited. So I think this is something that we should look into as countries, that whether they are victims or not, we should go for prosecution, because we have put 3 cases before court and we will see how it will go at the end of the time, because the law, the act, does not provide that the victim should be present at all times. Because in our law, because I believe that all the human trafficking acts are similar because they are derived from one protocol. So there is somewhere where the victim impact statement, because it shows that you don't need a victim to be present at court in order for you to prosecute the offense. So because there are instances where victims have died because they've hanged, because they've committed suicide due to exploitation and everything. So I think this is something that we should explore in our countries. Thank you very much.
Madam, please.
In fact, in the conclusion of the meeting of the women judges, we speak about this problem of the victims and are not necessarily be present, because of course, to avoid this consequence. So we say this, and maybe it could be important that we put here the conclusion of the other meeting of the judges, women, that some of the people that to have here participate also in the meeting. Thank you.
Priscilla from Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Let me say that it is not a cast on the stone thing. It is a process which with time we will tackle country by country. Let me say that in Nigeria, the government has that political will to fight issue of trafficking, prostitution, and the likes. You have a scenario where at the magistrate level, the police that are the prosecutors, most of them are not lawyers. And these are people who will be on the prosecution side while the defense will be defended by lawyers. So you have a situation where they are not at par. It wouldn't take a minute, seconds, or a few days before you see the prosecution crashing if there wasn't any proper investigation. And proper investigation is always key if you want to at least get some conviction or at least see people being convinced that something is going on. At present, there is that concerted effort to have the police trained. You have some of them now who are lawyers. But then it is a process, something that will not just be a turn on the tap and it starts running. It will take quite some time. Then the issue of which Nyako touched on, corruption. Yes, because we cannot wish that away. There are people who still, even when proper investigation has been done, but then along the line, you will start hearing, oh, this witness is not found. That witness is not found. As if the witness is in the air. It is still within the same country. Therefore, for instance, if a police prosecutor was transferred from his base to another place, what will it take for him to come back? You know, it's a question of providing the money, then the person will come. But you find excuses being given, and that is where the issue of corruption, you don't know what has happened along the line. Like I said, it is a process which, with time, we may get there. Thank you very much.
One moment. Sí. First, Christine, after Anita from Kenya. Only Anita. Anita.
Okay, sorry, so thank you. I just wanted to say that I think there is commitment by the governments to address trafficking. I think the challenge is that there is no appreciation of the complexity of trafficking crimes in African countries. That usually it's intertwined with other crimes. So whereas you may find a case of rape or sexual violence, if you really dig deep into that case, you might find that it's actually a case of trafficking. And also that what I have seen in certain countries is that there's lack of coordination of different anti-trafficking bodies. So, so for example, like you'd find, as she has said, that most of our acts borrow from the Palermo Protocol, and I've actually used the definitions within the Palermo Protocol. But to actually tackle trafficking, you need to look at issues around poverty, you need to look at inequality, and need to look at discrimination. So you have to go to the root of the problem of trafficking to address trafficking holistically. You cannot address it by creating a counter-trafficking in person's body and expect that that body will address trafficking. It cannot. You have to look at the complexity of trafficking and address it from that multi-sector approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Please. ¿Cómo se llama la hermana, la religiosa que pidió la palabra? Bueno. Sister Eugene Bonetti, first.
All right. I just wanted to add to what our respected Cardinal said. about the way we can help the government to make sure that these prosecuting agencies, they have enough money. Now, the problem we have, it may not necessarily be underfunding. The government budgets money for the agencies, but because of corruption, the agencies may not get that money. Now, let me give a practical example of what happened in my court. Now, this was a case of a young man who brings children, 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old. He gives them to these old men who have AIDS because they believe that when they sleep with those young children, the AIDS will go away. So he was caught. And when he was caught, he was now threatening the children of the parents of those children. So the DSS, that's our own Directorate of Security, they now arrested him. Unfortunately for him, he now filed an action in my court for upholding his fundamental human rights. I say unfortunately for him. And to be fair to the DSS, everybody was very angry. The doctors, they made their reports, everybody, they all came. It was a fundamental human rights action. And then when I finished it, what I held was, I don't see why you are here. And after making sure that the judgment was not in his favor, I now awarded costs to the prosecuting agencies. And they were very happy. I didn't say to the federal government or to the state government, but to that particular prosecuting agency, the DSS. I awarded lots of money to them. I now awarded costs to the parents of the children. They were scared to collect the money because they believed that Juju will catch them if they come and collect the money. So I said, fine, pay the money into court. DSS collect the money. And when they found that the DSS agents did not die after collecting the money, they now came and collected the money. But what I want to point out is that from that point on, I found those prosecutors always on their alert because they were very happy that they were giving money. Because I told them, calculate all you have spent, the transport you used to take these children to hospital, all you have, and then I asked them to pay within 7 days. And they paid that money. So what am I trying to suggest? Maybe we get these victims, file a fundamental human rights action against the traffickers, and then we get them to pay. Now, the place to hit these traffickers is in their pockets because they don't want to spend money. They rather want to earn money. And another thing, by the time we give them custodial sentences, we have our politicians, they come into power, independence, they pardon them. You give 15-year sentence, independence, they are gone. So what we do, or what I have been doing with some of my colleagues, apart from that custodial sentence, we now make an order, you forfeit all your properties that are linked, your houses, your landed properties, your cars, and then we make an order that they must be publicly auctioned within 7 days. That's after the period of appeal has passed. Because if we don't do that, you will find out that when we say forfeit to the federal government, they will go backwards and collect those properties back. So we make an order for public auction, somebody buys it, and then you can't go back and collect the properties. That is one of the suggestions I want to make at this point. Thank you.
Other opinion? Yes.
I wish to respond to the issue of government commitment. I would think in Tanzania the government is quite committed with the legislations, with the policy, but again the adoption of putting in place various issues. Now compulsory free education is not only for primary school, but it goes up to secondary school. So by the time the girls, for instance, complete secondary school, they're above the age of 18. So the problem of internal domestication for taking the girls from the rural to the urban to come and work as house girls is now going to be on the very minimum. But again, the issue of policies and legislations alone isn't sufficient. You were talking about the police. Poor prosecution has been a great problem. A few years ago, some of those who come from Kenya and Uganda might have heard of this case where we had some people who visited young children. They were just playing outside, and they would give them sweets, and the other child would go and call a colleague, and they would get sweets. So they took about four children from the same street and disappeared with those children. And now they are communicating with their families through their telephones that we want a certain amount of money to release your child. And the police was able to get in touch with one of them, and they arrested one of them. In due course of the prosecution, I think this accused tried to run away. And what this policeman did was to shoot him. So he was shot down dead, and it means even the remaining children now could not be found. They were also killed and just thrown away. The issue of investigation is still a problem. Likewise, the issue of prosecution. But even where we have conviction, which are also very few, and the issue of forfeiture of their properties, I remember there was a case whereby, like my sister was saying, there was an order to have them sold by way of public auction. And the auction went there thrice, and nobody turned up to bid for the properties. And so the properties were just there, and nobody could take up the bid. So the government had to just take the properties maybe and just give them away to some other issues. But even where the bid is done or the forfeiture is done, the amount is still very small to assist the government into getting some other financial assistance. So one of the suggestions was maybe come up with some fundraising projects and assist those centers, which we are now trying to do. To at least the community itself now should add efforts within what the government can give to them so that we get rid of this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, please. Mozambique?
Ok. Je voulais répondre à la question de cher cardinal. Je voulais dire qu'en Tunisie, on a pu promulguer une loi avant-gardiste en la matière, mais il reste encore un certain nombre de défis à relever pour faire face à la traite des personnes et protéger notamment les victimes. En effet, une volonté politique, une bonne volonté politique et l'existence d'une bonne loi, une loi que je peux dire avant-gardiste, ne suffit pas à elle seule pour combattre la traite. Il faut faire, à mon avis, face du problème de source, c'est-à-dire c'est la sensibilisation. Il faut sensibiliser l'opinion publique, tout le monde. Il faut sensibiliser les gens normaux, les gens parfois ils sont en train de commettre des crimes, ils sont en train d'aider ces gens-là, ces trafiquants, sans le savoir. En plus, il faut aussi renforcer les capacités des acteurs gouvernementaux et non gouvernementaux en vue de lutter contre la traite, et ce à travers des activités d'assistance technique et de formation. Et j'insiste surtout, comme a dit mes collègues, sur la nécessité des formations des agents tels que les policiers, les travailleurs sociaux, les inspecteurs de travail. Ces gens-là, de source, ils peuvent vraiment aider à identifier ces victimes. Et aussi, j'aimerais bien remarquer qu'une bonne identification des victimes permet de différencier ces victimes des migrants en situation irrégulière ou des délinquants potentiels. Voilà. Merci.
Sí, please. After coffee break.
Obrigada por me dar a palavra. Apenas para reforçar o que foi dito pelas minhas colegas da Botsuana, da Nigéria e da Tunísia, e em resposta à pergunta do Monsenhor, o governo de Cabo Verde mostra-se engajado, preocupado no combate a este fenómeno criminoso. Mas creio eu que temos que ter também muito cuidado, Cabo Verde em particular, não é? Porque tem incidido no combate ao tráfico de estupefacientes. Tem tido algumas dificuldades neste combate ao tráfico de estupefacientes. Agora estamos a começar nesse combate ao tráfico de pessoas, com a implementação de um plano, como disse na minha apresentação, que foi aprovada no mês de maio. Foi criado um observatório, mas creio que devemos aprender os nossos erros e também acompanhar outros aspectos positivos que Cabo Verde tem conseguido. Por exemplo, os erros relativamente ao crime de tráfico de drogas é que, muitas das vezes, os correios de droga ou as mulas, quando são detidas em flagrante delito, não denunciam o principal traficante ou aquele importador do estupefaciente ou o exportador da droga, porque a droga vem normalmente da América Latina, passa por Cabo Verde para a Europa. Porque também a pessoa, quando é encontrada com droga, ela é punida e por estar na posse da droga. Pelo menos nesta matéria, o nosso legislador não veio responsabilizar a vítima do crime de tráfico de drogas. Portanto, eu creio que isto é importante também que Cabo Verde possa difundir, como disse a colega há bocado, de mostrar que quem é vítima pode procurar as autoridades, tentar buscar um apoio formal que não será responsabilizado criminalmente, porque pode ficar com aquela ideia, aquele paralelismo que existe, não é? Se eu for pego com droga, sou punido. Portanto, se eu for vítima de um crime de tráfico de pessoas, também posso ser punida. E creio que isto é importante, essa divulgação relativamente à não criminalização, e também porque nós também tivemos uma grande campanha relativamente aos crimes sexuais, por exemplo. Podemos aproveitar essas ideias em que hoje em dia temos uma linha gratuita para denunciar os crimes sexuais. E tem havido uma forte denúncia por parte da sociedade. Porque creio que podemos aproveitar, Cabo Verde deve aproveitar esse benefício de ter uma linha própria para os crimes sexuais e estendê-lo para os crimes de tráfico, para que as pessoas sintam, pelo menos no conforto do anonimato, denunciar determinadas situações que podem nem ser, mas para abrir os olhos às pessoas e tentarmos combater de forma efetiva, porque Cabo Verde perdeu muito com o tráfico de estupefacientes. Hoje temos vários jovens dependentes do crack, não é, derivado de cocaína, e muitos crimes praticados contra pessoas e crimes contra o património decorrente do consumo. E temos que tentar evitar que Cabo Verde chegue a um estágio muito elevado de tráfico de pessoas, para que possamos ter uma sociedade mais tranquila, mais harmónica e que possamos ter um ambiente social pacífico, para que todos possamos usufruir da melhor forma possível. Obrigada pela oportunidade.
Obrigada. Ladies, now coffee break.